This is your radio Bible teacher, Dr. David Depew, welcoming you to the Seed of Abraham program, where we take time to again consider the greatness and faithfulness of God. We are continuing in our series of programs on Jesus Christ coming in the fullness of time. This was in the Greek called the Pleroma, the fullness of time, just like when some fruit is ripe on a tree and is ready to be picked. Jesus Christ broke through into our time and our space to bring us a message of salvation and to bring salvation to all who would believe. We spoke in our previous program regarding something that was occurring at the time of Jesus. There were discussions going on, philosophical, theological discussions among the Jewish people, and two of the great leaders of those people who led in those discussions and their students who followed after them were Hillel and Shammai. We spoke about them, Hillel being somewhat more of a liberal teacher in some ways, and Shammai being somewhat more conservative. Many of the questions that were brought to Jesus were ones which were already in discussion during that time, and the people wanted to know what Jesus' ruling was, or what his decision was on things such as that. Now, one question that was asked of Jesus, Yeshua, when he came was recorded in Matthew chapter 22, and that question is, Rabbi, which is the greatest of the commandments in the law? And of course, we might just mention that one traditional way of dividing the many commandments in the law is dividing them in over 600 different ways. And here they were asking Jesus, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And so Jesus gave them the answer, and he quoted from Deuteronomy chapter 6. He said, Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, and this is the greatest commandment. He was quoting from it. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And so we see that this is a very important thing where we see Jesus as a lawgiver and Jesus telling the people the two greatest laws, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, and the second is like unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And so we see this is an important thing. It's not just something to see in our head or that, but it's something that we're to apply and remember. When we see this from the book of Deuteronomy, and then we see this repeated again by Jesus the Messiah, we know that it is extremely important that we love the Lord our God. There are some people who have different gods, some people who have many gods that they worship, but there's only one true God, the one that was the creator of the world. This is the one whom we worship and we praise, and about whom we study. Then there's another interesting thing that occurred back at the time of Jesus. You may recall that the Passover was a celebration, a commemoration of the release from slavery at the hand of Pharaoh in ancient Egypt. And then at the time of Yeshua, at the time of Jesus, there had grown up a tradition that the Roman governor of the area would allow one prisoner, one governmental prisoner, to be released at that time. And in the year when Jesus was there, when he was in custody and was ready to die, the people were given a choice whether to have Jesus be freed or to have a man named Barabbas to be freed. Now, the interesting thing about this man Barabbas, his name, Bar-Abbas, means the son or a son of the Father. And so we see that it's interesting that while they were saying in their language, give us or release to us the Son of the Father, right before them also was Jesus, who was truly the Son of the Father in heaven. And as we mentioned before, the Son means the expression, the giving out of the message, the word of what is on the heart of God the Father in heaven. Jesus was the Son of God, not because he was born of Mary, but because he was the expression of God. He was the second person in the Holy Trinity, and in this way he was the Son of God, that he was the one who came to reveal the true nature of God to us. He's the only way that we have of knowing what God is really like in any way that we can comprehend with our mind and really understand. And this is the blessing that was brought about by him coming and revealing this to us. But here we see the people at that time were asking for Barabbas, the Son of the Father, rather than the true Son of the Father who was standing before them and ready to give his life. Now, another interesting thing about Jesus coming in the fullness of time was Jesus came and was the son of David, and this was important because the Messiah, the Messianic line, the promise of God, was to come through the line of King David. So whoever the appointed Messiah would be, the anointed, as it is in the original language, the anointed one, the Messiah, would have to be one from the tribe of David, or from the family of David. And those genealogical records, the family records, were kept in the temple in Jerusalem. Now, in 70 A.D., there was a terrible battle. Jerusalem was captured by the Roman army because of a rebellion against Rome, and the temple and the buildings associated with it were burned and destroyed. And with it, all the genealogical records, the family records of these families that went back to the time of David and probably even further, were destroyed. So, in order for anyone to prove that he was the Messiah, the one who was promised in the line of David, that individual would have had to been born and lived and made his claims to being the Messiah before 70 A.D. After that, there would be no proof, no written proof of the family lines and the lineage, the family from which such a person claimed to come. So we see that here, when Rome thought they were destroying a group of people, that they were putting down a rebellion, that Rome was proving that it was so powerful and such a strong government, but yet we see what actually occurred was that the sentence was sealed after 70 A.D. No one else could rightfully and honestly really claim to be the Messiah and have any proof of that because of the destruction of the genealogical records. There's another little interesting thing that occurred back during the time of Jesus, and that was that Luke, the one who wrote the Gospel as recorded by Luke, what he had interviewed the various disciples, he was able to interview the mother of Jesus, and he was a medical doctor. Now, medicine had arrived to a very high point. Egyptian medicine and ancient Jewish medicine was very good. They had a lot of scientific knowledge. They knew about many different facets of medicine and about physiology and anatomy. And so this medical doctor was the one who was able to interview the Mother Mary, and he gave the most clear and explicit version and details of the virgin birth of Jesus being born from the Virgin Mary. And so we see that this was a good thing that occurred, because at that very time when people would be skeptical about this type of thing, and when the message would come on to us down and be passed to us from that time period, that Luke, yet as a physician, as a scientist, was able to interview Mary and other people and know truly that Jesus was born of a virgin, and to explain about some of the events that occurred at that time. This is an exciting portion of Scripture, and we'll soon be completing it, of our Scripture study on the Pleroma, on Jesus coming in the fullness of time. And again, we mentioned that this is taken from Galatians chapter 4, verse 4, when it said, "But when the fullness or the ripeness of time came, God sent forth His Son unto us." And that is something that we can be thankful for, and for which we thank God, that Jesus came at a time that was appropriate. He didn't come 100 or 200 or 1,000 years earlier, or 100 or 200 or 1,000 years later. He came at the very time when there was so much going on in the Roman Empire. The roads were made so that people could travel long distances. The message could be spread. There was relative peace. People could travel. The Greek language had been spread, and so the Gospels and the records of the early Christian church could be passed around in the Greek language, and people would know what was going on. It was a very wonderful time when Jesus came, the very appropriate time for Him to be there, and for all of these things to come together, things in the life of King Herod, things before this. There was just so many things that came on. Alexander the Great going and conquering so much of the world and claiming to be a god. It was very interesting and exciting time, and we look forward to our final 2 programs in this series. This is your radio Bible teacher, Dr. David Depew, inviting you to listen in again next time to the Seed of Abraham radio Bible study. Please write to us at the Seed of Abraham, Post Office Box 842, that's Box 842, Alhambra, Alhambra, California, 91802, USA. Goodbye for now, and may God bless you as you study His Word.